So, some of you may remember this. Mute TTS for a sec. Whoa. I love this intro.
All right, it is Tuesday. We are.
It still bothers me. I don't know if Nupss is here that we had to film this 3 times in different taxis. Behind the curtain, this wasn't the first time we went to the campus. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for revealing behind the curtain. I'm sorry for revealing. This was not the first time we went to the campus. This was like day 3. Because we kept trying to film this intro and the lights right on the corner kept turning at the wrong time. But, okay, so you remember we went to Blizzard. And here we go. Yes, we knew. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow, the old studio. Oh, blessed be Poseidon. Wow. Oh, God, do you remember this cover? Me and Chris fucking hated this cover so much. We hated this cover so much. And Emma insisted it improved everything. Oh. We hated it so much. We absolutely detested it. We really detested it. Yeah, I prefer it now. I do prefer it now. Emma loved it. She was like, "This, you can't have that brown," because it was a brown leather sofa. We didn't use it wrong. I swear, this was like 3 of us working on this fucking things. It was such a pain in the ass. I do want to get these lights back up on the statues. I think they added a lot to the statues up here. They're just little light pucks off Amazon and these things. What's on the second shelf on the right-hand side? That's Resident Evil 2 on the original copy. That's the mug from BlizzCon year it was done. Bloodborne and... Oh, Demon Souls. An original copy of Demon Souls. Yeah, Bloodborne and original copy of Demon Souls. That's the Manchester Pusher hand, which was a community joke. And the original copy of Command & Conquer in its original box, which is currently there. All this stuff is still here. It's all just on the back at the moment. You missed the old setup? I don't. I prefer it in this corner. I like it. I've got space to move and shit. Either way, yes. So we knew that the general audience would have no idea who we were about to speak to, and how important they were. Because people know Ian Hazacostas, they know Morgan Day, they know Halinka, they know all those people. But the big interview that we actually got, this was a way more important interview, was with Holly, who most people know now, and John Hight.
Very, very, very big deals. First, we're going to sit down with Holly Longdale. Holly joined in 2020 to take over the class.
So that's Holly, that's John, that's, I don't know who that is, that's somebody else who was there. But Holly Longdale, who has potentially a really remarkable ascension up the career ladder. This is John Hight and this guy who turned up as well.
Classic team. She has so much MMO experience, it's ridiculous. She spent nearly 10 years alone on EverQuest 2 getting their classic game up and running, and she's now the vice president of all of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so it's important to understand the differences here. Holly started on Classic. Classic did super well. She started introducing some new, fresh ideas, which became things like Season of Discovery and stuff like that, and bringing it in. And she was put in charge of Classic World of Warcraft. She then did so well, she was promoted to being in charge of World of Warcraft, right? The game's World of Warcraft. So that's what Holly does now. She's in charge of all of World of Warcraft. So that's retail, remix, everything. Everything that is World of Warcraft related.
With her, John Hight. John's been in the game since 1993. He's worked on video game franchises you guys probably love, like God of War, Command & Conquer Red Alert. He literally, and I mean this, wrote the book on how to create video games. He was a professor for years and joined the World of Warcraft team in 2011. He is now in charge of Warcraft, not just World of Warcraft, all of Warcraft.
Yep.
I couldn't miss the opportunity while I had these two here to find out how Classic came about and how it's probably influencing Dragonflight.
Okay, so you get an idea now, is John is in charge of, he's stepping down now, all of Warcraft, be it the board games, the movies, the spin-offs, the events. His main role, though, is John is the one who knows how to assign the resources within Blizzard to whatever the Warcraft team wants to make. right? So they come up with all the ideas for the next expansion. He's the one who actually figures out the money, who's getting what, hires, which teams need to come on board. But his main role, as he points out in this interview, we spent a long time with these two. These two were the most important, not to disrespect Ian, Morgan, Halinka, and everybody else that I spoke to while I was there. These two are the biggest deals at Blizzard for me to speak to. The only person who I could talk to at Blizzard who was higher than these was some kind of Ibarra guy, whoever the fuck he was. But these two were the most important to talk to. So these were the big deal. These were a very big deal. So, like, when they wanted to make Dragonflight and they needed new staff, it was John and went out and, like, found a team for them to recruit, how much that was going to pay. I mean, John's in charge of billions of dollars and assigns it out and tries his best to make sure the teams have what they want to do. So, John is the one who's stepping down. He's absolutely awesome. This, if you remember, this is the interview that... the lawyers were not happy that we were having. Let me put it in that context. Up until, I think I've told this, but maybe not. Up until like a week before we were flying out to California to have the interviews, we had 1 hour interviews with nearly everybody who was irrelevant and a 2 hour interview with Ian. So we had a lot to do. About a week before, the lawyers got involved. Like, we had a Discord chat, right? This is how it was organized. We had a Discord chat that was full of like the PR team and things like that. But then more people started getting like added to that. As it was actually happening, it was going to happen. We were coming. There was no faults. Like, it was happening. More people started getting added to that chat, including legal teams. And we got the notification. I remember this distinctly happening as I had just got home and I got a message from someone on the PR team saying, hey, just as an update to everything, looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Good news. So we're going to make the interview with like Holly and John like half an hour, and we're going to give you half an hour with everybody else so we can be more concise. It should be really exciting. And I was reading this saying, wait, you just cut all our interviews in half and it's being pitched to me like a good news thing? And I was in my kitchen and I was cooking dinner and I was looking at this message like, you literally just cut everything we're about to do in half. And it's like, hey guys, good news. You know, it's a PR team. They're trying to spin it in a good way. Like, it's going to be really good. It'll be to the point. It'll be concise and all this kind of stuff. And I remember, like, I messaged Nupps and I just replied like, yeah, that's not okay. The whole point of our exercise is... like, the way we had sold this originally was like, this that you did was horrible. Who was this for? Right? With this fucking blaring white light and lens flare. It looked like the latest Star Trek movie. Like, it was horrible. It was like, I mean, I remember I kept saying it was like when we see those Nintendo Switch adverts where everybody's at a rooftop barbecue playing Mario Kart, you know, like we all do. I was very super relatable, right? Like, I think even in this little scene here, there's like fucking 4 different camera angles of shit going on. Like, they had cameras and swooping cameras going across, and I expected at some point a Morton Tane to come riding past the window and like a camera cut back, close up of Holly smiling, back, fade into different camera shots on the side, fade back into. It's ridiculous. Like, this whole thing is so disingenuous and horrible for gamers. There's like 5 cameras swooping around the room doing all sorts of fucking shit. I was like, that's exactly the opposite of what we're going for. And giving me half an hour means I can't, like you saw with my interview with Yoshi P, I like to have a bit of a conversation. I don't want it to be just, I hate interviews that are just like question after question after question. And I sometimes see people do interviews with people and they're literally like looking at their phone for their notes. Like, okay, you've answered that question. Next question. Next question. Next question. Like, I want to have a chat and a conversation. So I was like, this is not going to do. And then they said, I'll see what I can do about the other people. But for Holly and John, they're too important. They're too high up. This wasn't from them, by the way. I want to be super clear on this. This was the legal team was saying, we're obviously kind of worried about what they say. Because they know, like, what the next 2 WoW expansions are. They know where the company direction's going. They know all this information, and they might say something that's not okay, even though we had given Blizzard carte blanche to let us know if they wanted to remove something from our video. If a leak happened, like we said, if they leak something to us or I see something, then we will not include it. But if it's something to do with them specifically, they are okay to tell us, like, you can't have that in the video because it's not public knowledge yet. That's totally fine. But context here, they had never let anybody in the history of ever do what I did here, right? I was very lucky. And it was only with my history in WoW that they let me do this, is giving some fucking rando from the UK access behind the curtain, right? So they were really nervous. Like, the legal team was incredibly nervous about this event because it had never happened before. We got backstage. We got to see, you know, I did walk into the room where the war with him was being planned and blah, 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 blah. And they were like, yeah, we can't, like, we're like really worried about this fucking guy because he has made some videos in the past, such as I am quitting your game because it's fucking terrible and it's not made for me anymore. And it's literally giving me fucking anxiety to stream about your game because I hate it so fucking much. And I've been fighting with you guys for years over this and done multiple interviews. I detest your video game at this point, right? So yeah, they were very nervous about it. So this is the interview, and you will see it throughout the interview. Is I like bringing this up because I think it's important for anybody who ends up in this position. Is I kind of had a feeling that the conversation was going to go well with these two from everything I'd seen. I was like, I think we could have a good conversation here. So when we were designing this room, because we had a good couple of hours because that's where I interviewed Ian over there, is to manipulate this room. So Bethany, or Linksy, as you probably know her, if you do know her at all, we changed all this to Warcraft stuff because it wasn't. It was all this stuff. They had all these games in there. We redid all this. We put the board game out. We got this desk in position. But the important thing to note is how we're sat, which was fully intentional, is I sat with my back to the lawyers that were sat behind me. So I couldn't see them calling to end the interview. Which is purely by design. I was like, okay, we'll get John and Holly facing this way, and I will sit facing that way so I can't see the lawyers that are behind me, which are telling me, like, your half an hour's up, right? And you can see where I had my watch. I don't often wear a watch, as you can see. I mean, I have watches. I have one here, but I don't often wear a watch in an interview. But you can see how I've positioned my watch so I can see my watch. And my plan, quote unquote, is that about the 29-minute mark, I will ask a very important question that I already had in my mind if I felt they were going to cut me off. This is what I should say. If I felt they were going to try and cut me off, I was going to ask a really important question at 29 minutes so it would keep going a little bit longer. And that would give me the benefit of talking about more personal stuff and being able to have a reciprocal conversation in the earlier time. So that's how I set this up so to make this work. I thought it was pretty good. Thankfully, though, exactly as we thought it would, after the first 5 minutes of this conversation, they were both fully in because they're wonderful people. They really are. John and Holly are amazing. They could tell we weren't being disingenuous, which we weren't. And we really gave a shit about the things we were talking about. And at one point, I think at the 40-minute mark, the lawyer said, just to let you guys know, you're like well past time. And I think it was John who was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And I was like, yes. 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 Do they have lawyers everywhere? Yes. The lawyers sat in on every interview we did. Every single one. The lawyers were in every single interview we did. In the background. So every chat I did with, regardless of who it was, the lawyers sat in the background to make sure. One of the lawyers was really nice. I saw him at BlizzCon. We had a good chat at BlizzCon. The other lawyer is the long-term one who's been there for a while and is very, very protective. He was not like he was not nice, but he definitely was wary of me. He was a little more receptive when I saw him at BlizzCon, and he was like, he was being the handler for John at that point. Good lawyer, bad lawyer. They're doing their job. Their job is to protect Blizzard. That's their job, right? Like, I didn't take it as like a personal affront. Their job is to protect Blizzard, and these two know things that the public should not know and could actually cause quite a stir. for example, right? No, I'm not even going to give an example because somebody will treat it badly, which is exactly why we have these conversations. But this was great. But needless to say, John is a very big deal. Now, Holly and John have been... I wonder what's going to happen now. So John's stepping down. He nicely replied to me this morning, which was great because I thought he'd be asleep. But he sent me a reply this morning. I messaged him and he replied to me, which is really nice. I met him again at BlizzCon. We had a great conversation at BlizzCon, as we did with Holly. I think we got another picture. I think Emma got a picture with John. Not that she knows who he is. But I'm really curious what will happen now because Holly and John have been inseparable since around here. They've been together in every meeting, everything. I wonder if they were preparing Holly to take that role. Because John obviously would have let them know he was leaving probably a couple of years ago. I'd imagine for a position of his stature, he was probably saying he's looking to leave in maybe 2024. So I wonder if they've been grooming Holly to replace John into that role. Which then leaves the question, is Ian going to take Holly's role? Yeah, he gives a lot of notice. He loved Blizzard. I mean, when I walked into the Blizzard studios and I looked into John's office, because I was outside his office, he was just playing Diablo 4. This was like long time before Diablo 4 was ever publicly available. He was just sat in his office playing Diablo 4 and giving it a test. Because I looked over and he's got like this big fish tank. He's got this big fish tank and he was just sat at his desk playing Diablo 4. And I was like, not a bad job, Ren. Not a bad job. He was just playing some Diablo 4. I'd be really curious if Ian wants that role, because Ian's passion lies in the design of the game. He loves making bosses and things like that. That was his old job. But I mean, obviously career-wise, it makes more sense to move up to that role. Because I know Morgan would happily move into Ian's role, I suspect. Morgan would take over in Ian's place, and Morgan's great. So I wonder if they're going to just move everybody up within. If Holly has been preparing to take over John's role for a while, and Ian will move up to being in charge of all of World of Warcraft, and then Morgan will move into the game director of WoW itself. Or will they hire someone from outside? Because there's not many people on the planet that have John's experience. But Holly could do it. Metzen, I'm not sure what the situation is with Metzen. I've asked for interviews with Chris Metzen. So we could do something. I don't think Chris wants to do any media, really. I think that may even be part of his contract, is to not be doing a lot of media or any media at all. I think he just wants to work on the creative side, and he certainly has the power to wield that hammer to say, I'm not doing interviews and shit. I just want to work on the game. That's it. I'm done. I'm come back. I just want to work on the game, which is totally fair. Yeah, BlizzCon is a different matter than doing interviews and things like that. Like, It's certainly not expected of him to do that, and I don't think he wants to do that. Yeah, fair. Totally fair. I think he wants to work in that role. I don't think he wants more responsibility. I think he just wants to work on the creative direction of the video game. And that's it. That's it. That's the impression I get from Metzen's position at the moment, is he just wants to work on creative. That's it. He wants to sit down, write stories, follow through with them, follow the project, make sure it's working. Do all that kind of stuff. So I think that's his role. So I don't think you'll see Metzen take up any more responsibilities. I just wondering whether they just keep it internal, given the success World of Warcraft is having right now, and keep it going. But it's sad to see John go. But I mean, at his age, and he's certainly earned his money. I wonder where he's. I wonder what his passion lies in, because he's certainly capable now of just working on whatever he wants. Like I said, I met the guy who, I always forget his name, and I feel really bad about it because he was super interesting to talk to, who created Diablo 1. Dave Brevik, that's his name. Dave Brevik. So when I was lucky enough to sit and chat with Dave Brevik at Jonathan's house for Grinding Gear Games, and he does that now. He's like a philanthropist on games he gives a shit about. He's made all his money from Diablo, so he's like involved with a lot of charity work, and he just works on games that he thinks are pretty cool. And that's it. That's what he does now. He just works on video games that he's passionate about and working on. So I wonder where John's going. I wonder if he'll join Ghostcrawler and stuff and see what they're up to, and help manage that project. You know, that's working with old friends. Not many of us, if we had the choice, wouldn't choose to just go and work with some old friends and make something cool, especially if we're not super arsed about it being some sort of AAA make billions of dollar game, which I don't think they are. So that'll be really interesting. Halinka's there. Yeah, Halinka's there. They also took... Bex, remind me, what's his fucking name? I always forget. What's his name? He's a genius as well. I'm annoyed at myself. Who was with Halinka? Graham. Yeah, Graham. Yeah, Graham. Graham's gone with Halinka as well, which is a real travesty because Graham's a fucking genius. Graham's a fucking passionate. He's young. He's a genius at combat design. And they yoinked him. Wah, 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 wah. I remember nearly everybody's name. I mean, they worked on, they made Evoker. They made all sorts of stuff. They made tons and tons of stuff. I remember nearly everyone's name. Tina, Maria, obviously Morgan, Halinka, Graham. Yeah, it was a whirlwind trip, man. It was a whirlwind trip. I mean, I must have met 50 people while I was there, right? I must have met 50 people. At least, who were important people doing various things. You're just saying the names from Mambo number 5? No, they're all in the interview. They're all there. They're all there.